What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Johners. This is episode 53, and today we're going to be focusing on this week's NXT and NXT UK. Before we start with all the reviews, we've got all the social media plugs, of course. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do. Just go on to Twitter and search with Johners_pod. On Instagram, you can find us there as well. Instagram.com/Wrestling with Johners. And of course, you can find our ever popular, ever interactive Facebook group. Go on to Facebook and search Wrestling with Johners. And of course, if you're listening on Apple iTunes, please don't forget to leave a 5-star rating. And of course, if you do, then we'll happily give you a shout out on a future episode of the podcast. And if you enjoy listening to this podcast, please don't forget to hit like, subscribe, share, and shout about the Wrestling with Johners podcast. This is the only podcast for all of your weekly NXT, NXT UK, WWE, and all-round wrestling needs. So please spread the word, tell your friends and tell your family, like I like to say every single week, and help to grow this podcast so that we can continue to produce quality content for you each and every week. Well, like most weeks, I have a guest host, and this week is no different. And this week we have Kieron Reed back on the podcast. Kieron was meant to have joined us last week, but due to circumstances beyond his control, he was unable to. But we got Kieron back on the podcast this week. So good afternoon, Kieron. Welcome back to the Wrestling with Johners podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be back. I'm sorry about last week. As you said, unforeseen circumstances kind of...
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. But we're really happy to have you back. And Kieron's going to be joining us on this week's podcast. We are going to be talking in detail about NXT, NXT UK, two cracking shows this week from the WWE Network. But before we start all of that, just to kind of check in with Kieron, really. And we mentioned off air some of the wrestling shows that you're planning to see over the coming week or a couple of weeks. You mentioned something about a Progress show. Now, we normally have you on to talk Progress whenever you go to see Progress live. You're off to see Progress this coming or next weekend, I understand. Tell us a little bit about that and who you're looking forward to seeing, Kieron.
So I'm going this weekend.
This weekend, yeah.
Yeah, and they've got a couple of guys coming over from the States. So you've got Eddie Kingston coming over, who's fighting Walter in Newcastle on Saturday, but he's also going to be there Sunday in Manchester, which is the one I'm going to.
Yeah.
We've also got a girl called Hollyhead coming over, where if you haven't watched episode 90, which is now live on Progress on Demand, she makes a bit of a surprise entrance and a bit of an impact from what I hear. So I'm looking forward to seeing her against Lana Austin, I think it is, on Sunday, and she's against Candy Floss on Saturday. So
awesome. Yeah,
there's good matches there from some of the people coming from abroad. You've also got Trent versus Robbo at Manchester, which I think is going to be a good match, so let's see how that goes. Obviously, I know you're a big Robbo fan.
Yeah, love him. Definitely.
I've actually seen Trent wrestle since after he lost at Super Strong Style, so...
Yeah, sounds like an amazing show, and that's this Sunday. We spoke off air a bit about your kind of Progress show this coming Sunday in Manchester, but next week is quite a big wrestling weekend for wrestling fans. There's quite a lot going on, especially over in America. We've got a couple of shows to look forward to next Saturday and one on Sunday. So we spoke off air a little bit about next Saturday's going to be a bit of a stacked lineup, especially for fans of AEW and Evolve / NXT, because AEW's latest kind of smaller show, Fight for the Fallen, is going to be airing on fight.tv and BR Sports, I understand. But Fight for the Fallen. So last weekend we had Fighter Fest, which was another success for AEW. Not quite as big scale as, brilliant as Double or Nothing was, but still some good matches and some noteworthy things to take away from Fighter Fest from last weekend. Fight for the Fallen next weekend, and that goes up head to head with the Evolve 10th anniversary show. So although Evolve announced their 10th anniversary show ahead of AEW's announcement of Fight for the Fallen, Evolve, or WWE, have decided to air the Evolve 10th anniversary show on the WWE Network, and of course it airs the same time as AEW's Fight for the Fallen. Now, of course, WWE have got ties with Evolve. They use Evolve as a little bit of a feeder system out on the indies there, ran by Gabe Sapolsky, who also helps backstage with the NXT products. So he does have kind of a bit of a relationship there with Triple H and all the NXT guys. So Evolve is kind of, part of the development system, you could say, for NXT and for the WWE. And a couple of the matches that have been announced for Evolve, the 10th anniversary show, you got Adam Cole defending his NXT. I think he's defending his championship against Akira Tozawa. And Matt Riddle is going to be going up against Drew Gulak. So we've seen Matt Riddle and Drew Gulak a couple of times on previous episodes of NXT, but certainly two good matches to look forward to there. As for Fight for the Fallen, I think the biggest match that's been announced is the tag match involving Cody and Dustin Rhodes versus the Young Bucks. So that will be a fantastic match to look out for next Saturday on Fight for the Fallen. What's your thoughts on these two shows, Kieron? I'll probably end up watching both, no doubt. Certainly looking forward to the Evolve show. I haven't seen a lot from Evolve, but I know that a lot of the NXT stars have come from Evolve. Certainly Keith Lee, Matt Riddle, Johnny Gargano. They've all been part of that system. Currently, you've got part of the NXT BreakOut tournament, Shane Strickland, and one or two of those stars that are now part of NXT have also been a part of Evolve. And of course, Shane Strickland used to be an Evolve heavyweight champion. But what's your thoughts on these two shows? Which one kind of stands out to you in particular? And will you be watching?
I'll be watching the Evolve one, probably not Fight for the Fallen. As we discussed off air, I haven't actually watched any of the AEW pay-per-views yet. I've only really seen reviews. I'm still a bit ropey about AEW at the minute. I think they're trying too much to appear to a crowd that WWE aren't hitting, and it's not going too well for them at the minute.
Okay.
They're trying to pander to a different audience altogether. If you've watched some of the other shows, they're doing a lot more darker stuff, and it's like direct shots at WWE they're doing. It's only going to hurt them if they keep doing that. They need to concentrate on what the company's actually supposed to be based on, which is the wrestling. Everyone they've got signed to them is a fantastic wrestler, and they seem to be just trying to do some sort of gimmick every other time in a match. Like, you had the Triple H shot at Double or Nothing with the chair, and then you had the unprotected chair shot this last weekend.
Yeah.
It's risky stuff they don't need to do. It's run by four of the best talented people out there, with the Young Bucks, Omega and Rhodes. And they've got a business, they've got a brain for the business. I mean, they went out and they took over the Bullet Club, and they made the Bullet Club bigger than it's ever been before. And now they've got this wrestling company. They just don't seem to be putting the same sort of thought into it. They seem to just want to push and push and push. So for me, it'll be Evolve, I think, over Fight for the Fallen.
Yeah, I'll end up watching both, no doubt. I'm definitely looking forward to the Evolve show. I thought that Double or Nothing was a massive hit, to be honest with you. Really, really enjoyed it. But I do agree with your sentiments there. I think that they're trying a bit too hard to appease a certain group of wrestling fans. I didn't think that the shot of Triple H with the Cody destroying the mock Triple H throne at Double or Nothing was necessary. Like I say, they seem to be trying a bit too hard to have shots at WWE, exactly as you just said. I thought the unprotected chair shot at this past weekend's Fyter Fest was completely unnecessary, very, very dangerous. And that's the sort of thing, that was popularized 20, 25 years ago. But now they're in kind of the 2000s and 2019. I just think that, that's massively outdated for someone not to bring up their hands with a chair shot like that, especially with the additional damage of Cody's head getting caught by the kind of edge of the upper half of the chair, which called him wide open. I think he had to have 12 staples to close that wound after that chair shot from Sean Spears. And it's early days. The jury's very much out. I think that wrestling fans that are sold on AEW are loving everything they're doing. wrestling fans are not quite convinced, are not quite sold on what they're doing. The jury is still out. I'm definitely looking forward to All Out, which is going to take place at the end of August, of course, from Chicago. I think they do just need to concentrate on what brought them to the dance, and that's kind of the fantastic wrestlers, the potential to have great storylines and great matches, which we saw glimpses of at Double or Nothing. I think that they kind of missed a trick, or kind of didn't make inroads to the success of Double or Nothing at Fyter Fest, and it'll be interesting to see what happens next at Fight for the Fallen. And then, of course, the following nights, we've got WWE Extreme Rules. Now, if I were to bring up some of the matches here, it looks like the main event is going to be a mixed match challenge. You've got the current Universal Champion Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch, the women's Raw Women's Champion, against Baron Corbin and Lacey Evans, and it sounds like that's going to be a bit of a winner takes all match. What's your thoughts on that one? Kind of just very briefly, you kind of into this mixed match challenge stuff? Of course, it's not official intergender wrestling, but it is quite an intriguing gimmick, and the threat of both Becky and Seth losing their championships is certainly a real one. It sounds like the WWE management are certainly trying to get Lacey Evans and Baron Corbin over. How does that main event kind of stand with you at the moment?
Unfortunately for me, it's getting repeaty, samey. It's going to be the third review now, because you had it at the Saudi show with Corbin versus Rollins for the title, and you had it Stomping Ground, and now you've got it again. Yeah, it's with a different twist to it, and I'm assuming it's going to be proper intergender wrestling, because they've announced it's going to be an Extreme Rules match.
Okay.
So it's just pretty much going to be anything goes. So I like the concept of Becky and Seth together, not as a couple, but as wrestlers. And I think WWE are only pushing those two together at the minute because they've officially come out as a couple. I don't think they would creatively did that originally, so I think they're using their relationship to kind of build a storyline.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to say it because I don't want one of them to lose the belt, but if one of them's going to lose the belt, it's going to be Becky to Lacey, not Seth to Corbin. As much as they're pushing Corbin, I can't see Corbin with that Universal strap. If he wanted that Universal strap, they should have let him cash in successfully instead of having fail on it.
Yeah, I mean, they're certainly pushing these two, Lacey Evans and Baron Corbin, as big-time heels. And it would certainly, it would certainly put out quite a clear statement if they were to put the belts on those two next Sunday. I think they might call it trolling the fans or trolling the fans. But if that's what they want to do, that's the storyline they're going to follow. But I think that you and me and most wrestling fans alike probably don't want Seth and Becky to lose their championships. Another match that stands out to me, you got The Undertaker and Roman Reigns versus Shane McMahon and Drew McIntyre. That looks quite good. Another match, Samoa Joe taking on Kofi Kingston for the WWE Championship. That should be a pretty interesting match. Bayley versus Alexa Bliss for her SmackDown Women's Championship. And you've got Daniel Bryan and Eric Rowan taking on New Day and Heavy Machinery in like a triple threat match for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. So overall, it looks like a fairly good card. I do agree with you, the main event is looking quite repetitive, because not only has Seth and Baron Corbin wrestled each other for the last 3 pay-per-views, but so has Lacey Evans and Becky Lynch. And to be honest with you, their matches haven't been fantastic, if I'm perfectly honest with you. Any other matches from the ones that I mentioned standing out to you as being ones that you're looking forward to in particular?
The only one that's standing out to me, and it's standing out to me for all the wrong reasons, is Undertaker and Roman versus McIntyre and Shane McMahon.
Yeah.
Out of all the wrestlers you could get, why Taker? He's not actually give a valid reason to why he come and help. He just showed up, chokeslammed Shane, and was like, yeah, fine, let's go have a match. I know he's got a contract feel, but it doesn't, for me, it just doesn't make sense. The last time Roman and Taker got together in a ring, Roman beat him.
Yeah, WrestleMania 33, wasn't it? Yeah, 33.
So
Yeah.
why has he now popped up 2 years later and gone, I'm going to help you?
Yeah, I mean, they could have played it as, the storyline could have been, I respect you from our match 2 years ago at WrestleMania. But I don't think they've really kind of filled them pieces yet. And this is one thing that WWE have never been good at. They've kind of thrown individuals together or thrown people into a storyline without really giving it a proper backstory, a proper explanation. When there's a clear backstory there and a clear, explanation to be had. But we know that Paul Heyman, for example, is kind of a master with promos and developing storylines. So maybe we'll get a bit more kind of explanation into why those two are together. Hopefully before the pay-per-view, we've got the go-home episodes of Raw and SmackDown to come. But yeah, that one interests me as well. I'm quite looking forward to seeing the tag match, Daniel Bryan and Rowan versus Heavy Machinery and New Day. I thought that Daniel Bryan and Rowan's match against Heavy Machinery at Stomping Grounds was really entertaining. Thoroughly enjoyed it. In fact, I enjoyed most of Stomping Grounds because all the matches just seemed real, it sounds like the handcuffs were taken off a lot of the wrestlers and they were just told to go out and have a good match, which they did throughout. Say the cruiserweight match, the match with Ricochet and Samoa Joe. Really enjoyed a lot of the matches, including the tag match. And I think that the triple threats now involving New Day should make it even more interesting, even more entertaining. But that's another match I'm looking forward to. So on the whole, although we are a little over a week away from Extreme Rules, and of course with all the matches, you're going to have some kind of gimmick element added into a lot of these matches. I'm looking forward to it. So it should be pretty good. So as I said, this weekend you've got the Progress show in Manchester you're going to be watching. Next weekend there's a good handful of shows that you can be watching on our TV sets. But let's focus on this week's action. And of course, both me and Kieron watched this week's NXT and NXT UK. So let's recap some of the action. So Kieron, if you're ready, we're going to start with NXT and talk a little about this Wednesday's episode of NXT. And the first match on this week's NXT, not very kind of inspirational, not very exciting on paper, but it was Aaliyah versus Mia Yim. So this match started with a bit of outside interference from Vanessa Bourne, and Aaliyah was able to get a 2 count against her opponent Mia Yim very early on. Yim then applies a tarantula on Aaliyah, which was a move made famous by Tajiri, of course, back in the 90s and 2000s. However, Aaliyah gets another 2 count from quite an impressive enziguri. Aaliyah applies a bodyboard stretch. However, Mia Yim soon recovers, hits her belly to belly on Aaliyah before connecting onto Bourne and Aaliyah with an excellent dive through the ropes. Mia finishes the match with a fall-away slam and her protect your neck finisher for the pinfall victory. So Aaliyah was never going to win this match. I think she's only just used as kind of fodder for the main stars on NXT. But to her credit, she did get in some offense and leading to a short but fun match between these two. After the match, Mia Yim throws Vanessa Bourne into the ring steps before delivering a message to Shayna Baszler at the announcer's desk saying, Shayna, her days as the NXT Women's Champion are numbered. So this was the opening match of this week's NXT. What were your thoughts on this match? Bit of a squash, but still fun for what it was.
It was, to be fair. I saw some stuff in Aaliyah that I've not seen before. There was this one bit that she did, which actually took me by surprise, and I was slightly impressed. It was like a knee drop nip up.
Right.
So she hit the knee drop, and then after hitting the knee drop, nipped up. I was like, what? How's that even possible?
Yeah.
She got quite a good showing as well, which was nice to see. It just proves that Mia Yim's not just about herself. She went over in the end, but she will help like the undercards get a decent match out of her.
Yeah.
Mia Yim's been around the block a very long time, so she knows that she's probably not going to be around a lot longer. So helping other people is probably one of the things that she'll be looking to do while she's on her way to the top. We'll probably see her on SmackDown or Raw for a few years, but she'll end up going back down, I reckon. But overall, the match I was actually thoroughly impressed with.
Yeah. Like I say, it was short and sweet. It was what it was, but as you said, Aaliyah did get a few shots in and impress us with one or two moves. Let's be honest, she's been in developmental longer than anybody else in NXT, so she's got to have learned a few moves by now. But at the end of the match, just sticking with Mia Yim, it sounds like, and this might be a little bit of a spoiler, but it sounds like she might be Shayna's next takeover opponent. It's rumoured that she may well be Shayna's opponent for Takeover Toronto in August, although that's still a month out, a couple of months out. There's a good possibility that Mia Yim could be the title contender there. But going back to your kind of sentiments, yeah, it'd be great to see Mia Yim eventually on the main roster, but I wouldn't be surprised if she ends up as part of the kind of team of trainers down in Orlando, Florida there as part of the NXT setup. But while she's around in NXT, she's definitely impressed me, and I think she's got her eyes set firmly on Shayna Baszler's NXT Gold. Then we see highlights of last week's NXT Women's Championship match involving Shayna Baszler and Io Shirai, of course, with Baszler winning the match after having the cage door pulled back and kind of slammed back on Baszler's head, causing Baszler to fall forward, winning the match by hitting the ground on the outside, thus retaining her championship. However, one thing that was even more noteworthy from that excellent match, and it was an excellent match, was the heel turn from Io Shirai afterwards, where Io attacked Candice LeRae with chair shots after the match and a suplex onto the setup chair inside the ring, setting up, no doubt, a rivalry between these two, Candice LeRae and Io Shirai. That will be a red-hot feud. When that gets going, I'm sure we'll see more from that storyline as it develops on future episodes of NXT. What were your thoughts, just kind of thinking back to last week, the match and the heel turn afterwards, Kieron? I thought it was an excellent segment, and it kind of capped off a really, really hot episode of NXT last week. Just thinking back, kind of 1 week removed, what were your thoughts on kind of that whole segment, the match and the ending?
The match was brilliant.
Yeah.
I think it pulled everyone in, with everyone coming into the match, getting involved, and then how close Io was to then cost herself the title, I think was brilliant. The heel turn at the end, I kind of lost my temper a little bit. I got legit pissed off. Just because I thought the bump that Candice took at the end with the suplex on the chair, it looked horrible. If you notice the way she lands, she kind of lands on the back of her head. She kind of
it was almost a brain buster, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I was just like, ow, Candice is going to be out for a while.
She's a tough cookie, though. I mean, if you've seen anything from Candice LeRae on the indies before she joined NXT, she was mostly wrestling in intergender matches, and we've spoken a little bit about intergender matches earlier on in this episode, but she was mostly wrestling guys on the indie scene, so she can definitely take a bump. I think she's tougher than she looks, but I think that feud is going to be red hot. Whether it will make a takeover or not, I'm certainly looking forward to the first time those two lock up. And then we see William Regal. He is confronted by all three members of the Forgotten Sons, wanting another match against NXT Tag Team Champions, the Street Profits. Regal told the Forgotten Sons that because they lost their recent championship opportunity, they will be going to the back of the line. Kathy Kelly then asks William Regal who then will be the number one contenders for the NXT tag title, and William Regal answered Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch, and that match will take place on next week's NXT, and will definitely be a match that we'll be covering right here on the podcast. Then in one of the highlights of the show, we saw Adam Cole's championship celebration tour. We saw Cole turn up at the Gargano family restaurants, where he bought 4 pizzas for a bunch of very hungry wrestlers before pinning a picture up of himself on the Gargano Wall of Fame. Adam Cole then goes to Johnny Gargano's wrestling school, where Cole tells the group of trainee wrestlers to take a pizza, go home and give up, because they will never be NXT champion. To end the segment, Cole tells the wrestlers to find find a new hero. So a really excellent segment here. This is the second week where we've had Adam Cole's celebration tour, championship celebration tour, and another example of why NXT is head and shoulders ahead of the main roster, purely because they can do segments like this and do segments like this really, really well. So Kieron, back to you. What did you think of this Adam Cole celebration tour, championship celebration tour, and kind of going into the Gargano family restaurants and then into Johnny Gargano's training school? I thought it was a really fun segment and one of the highlights of this week's episode.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. To be honest, it just proves that it's going to get more intense, their rivalry, so we know it's not over. If he keeps doing what he's doing, you know Gargano's going to come back. I think they've got a perfect way here to incorporate someone from his school into a match.
Okay.
Which is taking, they're putting a lot of emphasis on the big dude.
Yeah.
They did it with Gargano going there, handing him the belt. You didn't see the belt on anyone else. And then this week, Adam Cole called him out. He didn't call any of the others out. He called him out with name. So I don't know if at some point he's going to try and get involved in a match or something.
Good shout. It could happen.
And then maybe join UE, do it as a heel turn on Gargano, just to cost Gargano the title. It'd be a good use for someone to start with the company. But
very interesting.
It's a hard one to pre-call because WWE have set up storylines like this and then gone a complete different direction. So obviously NXT have got a bit more free reign in what they do and stuff, but Triple H gets the final call and you know Vince is in his ear. So in my mind, that would be a perfect way for him to do it. But
yeah.
Whether
be interesting to see what happens next. And going back to the Evolve show that's taking place next weekend, and of course Adam Cole is taking on Akira Tozawa, and I believe Adam Cole's NXT Championship is on the line. And with Johnny Gargano being former Evolve champion himself, I wonder, just to get tongues wagging, whether we'll see an appearance from Johnny Gargano at the Evolve show, possibly interfering in Adam Cole's match with Akira Tozawa. So that's something to watch out for. I think the point you made regarding one of Johnny's trainee wrestlers possibly getting involved in a storyline, it could happen. It's something I hadn't thought of. So a good spot there. But yeah, they are focused on the big dude, certainly in the run up to TakeOver 25, and of course as part of this championship celebration tour. But very interesting. But like I said, I'm loving what I'm seeing from Adam Cole on his celebration tour, and what I've seen over the last 2 weeks. Moving on to the next match, and it was Kushida. So we've seen quite a bit of him over the last few weeks, and he's going up against Jeff Parker here. So Kushida essentially dissects and pulls Jeff Parker apart. There's no chance for Parker in this match. Kushida softens his opponent up with a soccer kick to the left arm before applying the hoverboard lock for the very easy win. The match goes less than 2 minutes. Kushida remains undefeated and has been very impressive since recently joining the NXT brand. However, I'm not sure that Kushida is clicking with everybody who's watching his matches. Question for you then, Kieron. What do you think might be missing from the package of Kushida, the character, the wrestler, the overall presentation of Kushida? I mean, he might have you sold. I like the guy. His entrance is pretty good. Not quite sold on his music yet. I think he needs to be involved in a feud or a decent storyline to add a bit more character development to Kushida. I think the potential is definitely there. Just a few things haven't quite settled down yet. What's your thoughts on Kushida?
I like him. When I watched his New Japan stuff, obviously he was there before coming here. He was brilliant, but it's completely different over here. His English isn't the greatest, and I don't think he's playing to his gimmick that well. His gimmick is the time splitter, but he's not, it's a hard gimmick to try and pull off.
Yeah.
You can't really call yourself the time splitter, but then you've not really... You can't turn time, you can't split time.
It's almost as if his gimmick is kind of set for almost a bigger stage, really, like a main roster stage or a takeover stage. Because obviously, I've seen quite a few of his entrances from New Japan, and you've got quite an elaborate set and quite an elaborate, gimmick that's going on stage during his entrance, and the Full Sail stage is quite small, and maybe he needs kind of literally a bigger stage to make that impression on and to perform his time splitter gimmick to the best of his ability, and maybe then we'll kind of be able to appreciate what he's trying to do a bit more and understand a bit more about his gimmick. But yes, I think his gimmick needs a bit of work, so I think people like him for who he is and what he's achieved, certainly in his past career with New Japan. But yes, not quite clicking, bit of work to be done. But of course, if you're going to work on a gimmick, there's no better place than NXT and down in developmental to do that sort of thing. And then we get another vignette from Killian Dane. So we saw the first of the kind of reintroduction of Killian Dane last week on NXT. Another one here with footage of the very violent and bloody times back in Northern Ireland. Killian Dane says that he wants us to know who and what he is. He wants you to know why he does the things he does. Killian Dane explains that everything he has been taken away from him, and now he's going to take everything and anything that he wants. So once again, NXT are very, very good with these video packages, very good at kind of introducing new characters, but it's not necessarily a new character. And much like Alexander Wolf and what he's now doing on NXT UK, both former NXT superstars, both former main roster superstars as part of the Sanity package. Of course, they hit their heights on NXT, but they were almost non-existent on the main roster. But it's good to see Killian Dane here getting a good build ahead of his return to NXT. What's your thoughts on kind of what they've done so far, and are you looking forward to Killian Dane returning to NXT?
Yeah. Simple answer on that one is yeah. Look at what he did before. Look at the first War Games. Look at how big he was and how much he was pushed. He was built to be like one of the next guys. He went toe to toe with Lars Sullivan. None of their matches were squash matches. And then they moved Sanity to the main roster and they've just done fuck all with him.
Yeah.
Sorry for my language. I apologise.
That's all right, I can bleep that out, don't worry.
I get angry with the Killian Dane thing because I'm going to put it to you this way. He can do everything Samoa Joe can do. True. Some things better than Samoa Joe can do. I think Killian Dane plays the big guy better than Samoa Joe. There's only one difference, and that's the experience. But you've got time to mould Killian Dane, but you've wasted like 4 years of that with him. The first 2 years went great, and then they put him on the main roster, and they've just done nothing. They've done no character building with him. They've given him no screen time, literally nothing. It's like being a footballer and just sitting on the bench. You're getting paid to do nothing. Something's like that, but I've met Killian Dane before, and he's passionate about wrestling, and I think that's why I get angry about this situation, because I know he wants to make himself better, and I know he wants to make an impact.
Yeah, and I think that the positives to this, despite all of the upsets from how they were handled on the main roster, the positive side to this is he's not going to be part of a team or a faction. They're going to be concentrated on him as a singles performer, and it will be an opportunity for him to shine in his own right with his own gimmick in his own matches. So quite often Killian Dane was a bit of a background player in Sanity matches. Like you say, he did perform in the first ever War Games. I saw Killian Dane in one of my favourite ever matches when I was lucky enough to be in New Orleans last year. And it was the opening match of TakeOver New Orleans in that 6-man ladder match. And Killian Dane, along with Lars Sullivan, 2 big guys, everybody absolutely smashed it. Everybody completely killed that match. It was one of the best matches ever, and still one of the best matches in TakeOver history. And he was part of that match. So I think giving him that opportunity to kind of shine in his own right as a singles performer without being under the shadow of a faction or a group is definitely a good thing for him. So it'll kind of be like a bit of a rebirth for him, and I hope he does well. And they seem to be kind of interested in pushing him, hence these vignettes and these video packages they're doing. So it sounds like they've got big things in store, hopefully big things in store for Killian Dane. I think he's, as you said, he's a very, very capable big guy, very, very capable big wrestler. So he could potentially be a contender for the North American, or potentially, dare I say it, somewhere down the line, the NXT Championship. I think he could make a credible heel contender to a babyface champion. But we will have to see, and no doubt we'll see Killian Dane's re-emergence, his re-debut on NXT very, very soon. But let's move on to our next match. And both you and I have spoken at length kind of online about how excited we are for the NXT BreakOut tournament. And this is still in the first round. Last week we saw the first round match, Angel Garza versus the former DJZ, Joaquin Wilde. Here, the second first round match, Isaiah Swerve Scott versus Cameron Grimes. So as I said, this is second match in the NXT BreakOut tournament. Tonight we witnessed 2 kind of very, very highly regarded indie stars. Formerly Shane Strickland, who, as I mentioned earlier, is a former Evolve champion and he's kind of wrestled all over America, and Cameron Grimes, the former Trevor Lee. So you know a bit about Trevor Lee. You saw him wrestle for Progress over Super Strong Style 16 a couple of months back. We were talking at the time, I think you came on a podcast and spoke about Super Strong Style 16 and mentioned how excellent Trevor Lee was on the mic, how entertaining he was on those 2 evenings, and here he is against Cameron Grimes. So going into this match, what were your thoughts, and kind of who were you looking forward to seeing? And like I say, what were your kind of thoughts going into this match, then, Kieron?
So my thoughts going into this match was whoever wins this match is winning the tournament.
Interesting.
This really is their 2 biggest names they've got from the indie scenes to come into this match. I was quite shocked that it was a first round match and not more of a semis to the final match. Unfortunately, the stuff I saw them do in the match didn't really surprise me, because I've watched both the guys on the indie scenes, like we spoke about before when it was announced that Shane Strickland was going there. I watched him before he was even at Evolve. I watched him when he was at Lucha Underground. He was wrestling in a mask and he was wrestling under the name Killshot. And he was phenomenal then. And for me, with the ability I know they've got and the WWE creativeness, they have the opportunity to do something so much more special than what they were given. They seem to have got their usual high spots in. I mean, the moonsault puncher that Shane Strickland Swerve did. Unfortunately, because Ricochet does it all the time on Raw, it's not special anymore.
Yeah.
And I did like I think it was like a springboard crossbody. It was really weird.
Yeah, no, it was a really fun match, and I think both first round matches have been fantastic, and they seem to have been given the freedom to kind of wrestle the way they would put a match together. And I thought it was good. The chains were taken off, so to speak, and we see a lot of that with the NXT product, where they're given a bit more freedom in the ring, not so much on the main roster products, although things do seem to be changing ever so slightly with the main roster products. But we're not here to talk about the main roster product today. But I thoroughly enjoyed this match. A couple of fun facts. Obviously, Nigel McGuinness acknowledged that Isaiah Scott, the former Shane Strickland, was a former Evolve champion. And a couple of fun facts came out about Cameron Grimes, that he's been an 11-year pro. And that's not so shocking until you find out that he's only 25 now. So he must have started wrestling as a pro at the age of 14, according to that logic. Plus, they said that he was kind of in a wrestling ring when he was a baby before the age of 2, obviously rolling around, but still probably getting in a wrestling ring far earlier than most other professional wrestlers out there. And the fact that Matt Hardy is obviously close to his kind of family, because Matt Hardy was at his birth. So 3 very interesting facts here about Cameron Grimes. And what it demonstrates is that Cameron Grimes is kind of born into the wrestling business, essentially, you could say, and taken one of his first steps inside a wrestling ring, and has grown up, I should imagine, no doubt, wanting to be a professional wrestler. So he's kind of, living his dream as a professional wrestler in NXT at the moment at the age of 25. And looking at the guy, he's not your kind of typical WWE wrestler. He's not carved out of granite or got muscles popping out of muscles, but he's kind of more of an old school look to him, to be honest with you, and more of an old school wrestling style. Certainly reminded me quite a bit of JBL, but with a bit more of a harder edge, certainly with some of the moves that he performed. But just to go through some of the key spots here, and then we'll talk a bit more about the match afterwards. So Isaiah Scott kept Grimes grounded for the first few minutes of the match with a couple of arm bars, and then he was able to demonstrate his excellent high-flying, high-impact offense with a few really cool moves. Grimes then recovers to offer some of his more straightforward wrestling offense with some stiff blows to the back of Isaiah Scott before delivering a wild lariat, getting a 2 count from that exchange of moves. In one of the moments of the match, Grimes was sat on the top turnbuckle, ready to come crashing down onto his opponent, when Scott leapt up from the canvas, catching Grimes with a head scissors, bringing Cameron Grimes back down to the canvas with a bang. So that was an awesome move, showing a lot of athletic ability there from Scott, of course. After a flurry of offense from Isaiah Scott, we get a very close near fall from a reverse STO / flatliner, whatever you want to call it. Grimes then gets a close near fall of his own from a huge sit-out powerbomb. That was quite impressive. Scott nails a Frosby flop dive over the top rope onto Grimes. That was executed to perfection, with Scott landed on his feet, very reminiscent of kind of the ricochets of this world. Cameron Grimes eventually wins the match with a very wild but very effective running double stomp to advance to the next round of the NXT BreakOut tournament. The match started slow, as all great matches should start, but built up to a very exciting climax. This was one of the first times I've witnessed Trevor Lee or Cameron Grimes in the ring, on the TV or live, to be honest with you. He definitely impressed me. Like I say, he's got a very unique wrestling style. But what were your thoughts on this match overall?
I think they needed more time.
Yeah.
I think creatively both those guys can do a hell of a lot more in the ring. If that was that's why I said they should have had it as the finals. If they had that in an NXT takeover, those guys would put on a match that would rival Gargano Cole matches.
Yeah.
That's my honest opinion from watching both of them. They're both great at telling stories in the ring. And as you saw watching today, they only scratched the surface of what they're capable of. I'm looking forward to seeing how WWE develop these characters and what actually happens. But like I said before we got into the match analysis, whoever wins this has pretty much won the tournament for me. So might see Cameron Grimes versus Adam Cole very soon.
Well, he definitely advances, and of course the big hook to all of this is the winner of this tournament does go on to face a champion of their choosing within NXT. So that could be quite interesting. Could be a shot at the North American champion. Could be a shot at Adam Cole or whoever is the NXT champion. Potentially, it could be a shot at the NXT UK champion. So who knows? But yeah, definitely an impressive outing here from Cameron Grimes. Really enjoyed watching him. Moving on to the next match. Speaking of impressive, we saw a very impressive outing from Bianca Belair. She took on a bit of an enhancement talent, I would say, in Zenica. So Zenica started the match by slapping Bianca Belair across the face. That's possibly the worst thing you can do. We know how Bianca Belair can be, but when she's pissed off and riled up, So we saw a slightly more aggressive side to Bianca Belair here. She just decimated her opponent after that slap, including 2 power bombs followed by a snake eyes onto the top turnbuckle. Bianca even performed 3 successive squats while holding Zanika high above her head in a gorilla press. The match finished with Bianca Belair finishing Zanika with her KOD Argentine facebuster for the very impressive win. I loved the extra bit of brutality from Belair in this match. And I suppose the key message from all of this to future opponents is do not slap Bianca Belair across the face to start the match. Just your very brief thoughts on this match. But Bianca Belair looking pretty dominant and showed a bit more of an aggressive side to her, in my opinion.
I think this is what she was missing as a character. Before you only saw her as the arrogant person. Now you're seeing her more of a actual... someone who's got a bit more of a feel about her than just, oh, I'm undefeated, I'm arrogant as hell, no one can beat me. You can always tell when a wrestler loses their first match after an undefeated streak whether they're sticking or whether they're going. Bianca's going to stick, you can tell, because she actually used some emotion in that match. Most wrestlers, it's just a paycheck for them. They take a loss, they carry on. Look at EC3 on Raw. He's taking losses and he's not getting anything for it. So he's just there for the money now. But that's just my opinion. But Bianca wants to push, she wants to impress herself. Her husband's current NXT Tag Team Champion, so that's got to give her some sort of drive as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely see her as a future NXT Women's Champion. I'm kind of surprised it hasn't happened already. I think she's got bigger things in store. It wouldn't surprise me if they've got her lined up as a possible Raw or SmackDown champion in the future. But I'd like to see her carry the NXT Championship belt at some point in the future. She's had her chances, but I think with this new, more aggressive edge, I think that this is kind of what's been lacking from Bianca Belair. Like you say, we've had the gimmick, we've had the hair and the braid, we've had the fantastic costumes, but now the missing part of the puzzle was, something a bit more aggressive, a bit more tangible, and we saw that this week, and hopefully that's the side of Bianca Belair that we're going to get each and every time. Let's move on to our main event for this week's NXT, Roderick Strong versus Tyler Breeze. So this match started with a bang after the Messiah of the backbreaker. Roderick Strong drops Tyler Breeze with a brutal back suplex of sorts onto the edge of the ring steps. Now that looked and sounded awful. Then Strong dropped Tyler Breeze again, this time back first across the barriers at ringside. Breeze makes a comeback with a flying forearm smash from the ring apron and eventually getting a 2 count from a backstabber of his own inside the ring. Strong connects with an enziguri to Breeze, who was sitting on the top turnbuckle before executing a brilliant superplex from the top turnbuckle, getting a very close near fall from that awesome pinning attempt. The match develops into a bit of a slugfest towards the end between these two until Bobby Fish comes racing down to the ring, only to get a super kick from Tyler Breeze. However, Roddy capitalised from the momentary distraction, hitting his release X-Plex backstabber for the 3 count and a very excellent victory. So I'd love to know your thoughts on this match. Quite a good main event, and they're obviously pushing Roddy Strong as a viable contender to possibly the North American Championship somewhere down the line. Adam Cole's been coming out here for weeks now, Kieron, saying that this is the year of Undisputed, and by the end of the year, all 4 members will be holding NXT Championship gold. Obviously, Cole is the current NXT champion. But do you see Roddy as a possible North American champion anytime soon? Give us your thoughts on that and give us your thoughts on the match as well.
So, Roddy is a singles wrestler, always has been. Him with the tag team and Kyle O'Reilly was brilliant, don't get me wrong. But you've got Fish back now, so you can actually have the tag team of the group as a tag team. All they need to do now is get a woman in there. They can hold every single belt. Roddy is what he is. He says he's a Messiah of the backbreaker. He's a seasoned vet. My issue is if Dream's still champion, Roddy won't beat Dream. You need someone to take the belt off of Dream so Roddy can beat them. Because you can't. Dream is being built up for a big stage push. They always mention about how John Cena's tweeted about him, The Rock's tweeted about him, Triple H has tweeted about him, all of this stuff. You've built him up so big that you can't have him then lose it to somebody like Roddy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
Roddy's the older guy, so they're trying to build him as the future of the company, but then he gets beat by a guy that spent all of his career in the Indies. Where the Dream really hasn't. Dream was on Tough Enough, the new episode, and then sat in developmental. So Dream is built from WWE. Roddy's really on it.
Yeah.
Also,
it'll be interesting. I think that, you know, if that's the way they want to go, and if Undisputed, if it's going to be the year of Undisputed with all four of them holding NXT gold by the end of the year, then the only championship that's really you know, a possibility is the North American Championship, unless they kind of evolve that. Roddy was having a bit of a rivalry before TakeOver 25 with Adam Cole, and whether that could lead to something in the future. Maybe we could get a championship match between those two, where Roddy might potentially become the NXT champion. But it'll be interesting to see. Like you say, you've got two very strong champions in NXT at the moment with Velveteen Dream and Adam Cole, of course. And I am in agreement with yourself. I can't see Roddy Strong taking the belt off of either one of those two, but we shall see how the overall story plays out in the weeks or months to come. I think there's lots of twists and turns ahead of us. Well, I'll tell you what, let's move on to NXT UK, because as much as NXT was really entertaining this week, I thoroughly enjoyed NXT UK also. So we're taken back to January to open the show. So NXT UK Takeover Blackpool, where the Grizzled Young Veterans won their championship in their classic match against Moustache Mountain back in January. And it's all kind of, the video package is built into tonight's long-awaited rematch and long-awaited main event for the NXT UK tag titles between the Grizzled Young Veterans, of course, and the current champions. They are the current champions against Moustache Mountain. So Moustache Mountain haven't been NXT UK tag team champions. They have been NXT tag team champions, but not UK tag team champions. So we're back at Download. We've been at Download for the last few weeks now. Obviously, it was recorded from a few weeks ago. And as if their match at Blackpool is anything to go by, tonight's match for the NXT UK tag team titles should be excellent. So going into this, we knew that Moustache Mountain was going to be going up against the Grizzled Young Veterans for the tag gold. Was this a match you were looking forward to? I'm guessing that you definitely enjoyed their match back in Blackpool in January. What were your thoughts kind of ahead of tonight's NXT main event?
Looking forward to Magic, to be honest. The match in Blackpool was insane.
Yeah.
So many spots, so many close finishes. It really had you on the edge of your seats. Everyone wanted Moustache Mountain to win it, but now they're on the chase, and that's what you need for viable title holders. So you can't just give all the straps to your Fab Five, as Cassius Ohno calls them.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got... That's the problem with WWE. There's not much of a chase anymore with championship changes.
Mm.
Johnny Gargano chased it with Ciampa, never got it. Then as soon as Ciampa got injured, picked it up. There was no actual chase between him and Adam Cole, if that makes sense.
Sure.
But then Adam Cole's had that chase. So when Adam Cole won the title, you felt more like, yes, finally. Obviously with Johnny it was different. You finally saw Johnny pick up the title, but you didn't see him pick it up from the person you wanted to see him pick him up from. So we spent 18 months fighting Ciampa in all these different match stipulations and stuff. You'd want to see him pick the title up from Ciampa. This is what they're doing with Moustache Mountain and Grizzled Young Veterans. Wouldn't surprise me for timeline-wise. It's not going to happen at Cardiff. I think it'll be the next takeover show they'll get.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, you could be right. I mean, like I say, there's been no matches announced yet for Takeover Cardiff, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we talk NXT UK in the next few minutes. But it's kind of interesting. We've all played kind of fantasy booker to see what matches might take place at Takeover Cardiff. And they've got another set of TV tapings happening in Plymouth very soon, I believe, that will probably give us all of the information we need to draw a full lineup for Takeover Cardiff taking place on the 31st of August. You're going to that, Kieron. I'm going to that. So that should be an absolutely fantastic show. Can't wait for that one. But I don't think any of the matches that were recorded at Download are really going to give away anything as to what might take place at Takeover Cardiff. So we'll have to wait with bated breath to see how the tapings from Plymouth plays out. But first off, we are greeted by Rhea Ripley. She heads to the ring to give us a promo. Rhea starts by addressing Piper Niven, saying that they have been going back and forth with this little feud of theirs now for weeks. And Rhea is sick and tired of hearing Piper talk about her being the most dominant woman on NXT UK. Rhea calls out Piper, and this is going to be our opening match for tonight's show. So I think, according to storyline, we weren't quite due to get this match until maybe later on in this show. But Rhea has had enough and wants the match there and then. So our opening match of this week's NXT UK is Rhea Ripley versus Piper Niven. So as Rhea rightly mentioned, this feud has been kind of building for the last few months now, and it will be the first time that we've seen Rhea involved in a high-profile match of sorts since her feud with Toni Storm over the NXT UK Women's Championship. The match starts with a bit of a slugfest, with Piper getting the upper hand before connecting with a running crossbody and a clothesline sending Rhea to the outside. Ripley shoves Niven into the ring post before getting Piper back into the ring, only managing a 1 count after that attack. There's dueling chants for both Piper Niven and Rhea Ripley from the fans at Download. Ripley takes Niven off her feet with a dropkick in the corner. However, Niven follows up with an impressive dropkick of her own, only for Ripley to pull Niven with force off the second turnbuckle before slapping on her inverted cloverleaf onto Piper Niven. Now, this is a move that we normally see Rhea Ripley apply to smaller opponents, such as Xia Brookside, for example. But she was able to apply it to Piper Niven just as effectively here. Ripley nails Niven with a wicked slap before appearing to bring some motivation and some life back into Piper Niven, leading to a brutal back suplex from Piper onto Ripley. After a series of back and forth short arm clotheslines, Niven connects with a running cannonball in the corner after Ripley runs shoulder first into the ring post, followed shortly after by Piper's Michinoku driver, which she is calling the Piper driver, hooking the leg and gets the 1, 2, 3. So this was quite a solid match. Both wrestlers giving quite a stiff offense to one another from the action on the outside, with Ripley running Piper Niven into the ring post and all the stiff moves back inside the ring. Really enjoyed this match. Thought this was a great opener. You know what you're going to get from these two wrestlers, two really, really well-established wrestlers. And, of course, Piper Niven, the slightly newer of the two, yet to establish herself. But I thought that this was a good match between these two. I wouldn't mind seeing more between these two in the future. What were your thoughts on Piper Niven versus Rhea Ripley?
It was everything I thought it was going to be. I think for those two to have another match, there needs to be something a bit more. So give it... Obviously, this has been built up just as who's the baddest woman on the NXT UK roster.
Yeah.
Give them something really worth fighting for. Number 1 contendership. Something like that. Watch what they can really do when there's something on the line. I think for what both of them are capable of, the match was kind of basic. There was a few heavy bumps, but it was more of the... I'm going to clothesline you, you're going to clothesline me, neither of us are going to move. Normal stuff that you get when it's big guy versus big guy, big girl versus big girl.
Yeah.
You need something for them to actually fight for. This one was kind of for bragging rights, and I feel like because it was pulled forward, they didn't get the time that I think they were supposed to get. For me, that match should have been a main event match of an episode, just because of the build-up. Thoroughly enjoyed the match, don't get me wrong, but I think I agree with you. We need to see it again, but we need to see it again with something on the line and a lot more time.
Yeah, no, some really interesting points there, and I totally agree with all your points. Yeah, I don't think this is going to be the last time that these two wrestle. I certainly hope not. But like I say, hopefully there's going to be some more kind of, something else on the line, higher stakes. But yeah, hopefully this is the start of a long rivalry. Then we got our next match, Jack Stars versus Alexander Wolf. So now the first time we saw Alexander Wolf was when he came to the rescue of his Imperium brethren a few weeks ago during an awesome 3-on-3 match between British Strong Style and Imperium. And the referee was distracted on the outside. Alexander Wolf came in, connected with the Liger Bomb, taking Tyler Bate out of the match, leading to the eventual pinfall for the Imperium team for that match. Here, however, Alexander Wolf is in brutal and destructive mode here against Jack Stars. Wolf connects with a picture-perfect German suplex and a beautiful pump kick, smashing Stars to the canvas. Stars then made a brief comeback with some European uppercuts. However, this was short-lived as Alexander Wolf connects with a Death Valley driver before dropping the the previously mentioned Liger Bomb for the easy pinfall victory. Now, I'm sure you'll agree with me here, Kieron. Alexander Wolf was wasted during his main roster run. We spoke about Killian Dane and Alexander Wolf and the whole sanity package going to waste on the main roster earlier on. Here, he seems to be at home as part of the Imperium package, as part of the Imperium faction. And I was very impressed with Alexander Wolf's stiff, no-nonsense wrestling style here, from the German suplex through to the DVD and the Liger Bomb to end the match. Very impressive. Now, when he was part of Sanity, even on NXT, we didn't get much of a chance to see Alexander Wolf wrestle in many one-on-one matches. It was mostly in tag matches with Killian Dane, or was part of the kind of the faction as a whole. But I was very impressed with Alexander Wolf. He's certainly got a bit of a platform here to demonstrate what he can do. And I think much like when Jack Stars fought Walter, when Walter debuted, this is another match that Jack Stars is not going to forget in a hurry.
Right. So this is the match I've wanted to talk about the most. So for the listeners that are regular with the European wrestling scene and Progress more than probably most, Ring Comp. Imperium is Ring Comp. You have two of the original members of Ring Comp now in Imperium. They wrestle the same way as they did as Ring Comp. This is the Alexander Wolf that I love, is what we saw today.
Yeah.
He keeps doing that. WWE have took an independent faction pretty much, added two new people to it, and if they book it right, you could have the most dominant faction you've had in wrestling history. If they book it right.
Yeah.
The problem I've got is it's WWE. They're not going to book it right.
Well, this is NXT UK, and they do tend to do quite a few things right compared to the main roster. So we might be in with a chance of. I mean, they're certainly booking them right at the moment, aren't they?
But you're only going to see that whilst they're on NXT and NXT UK.
Yeah.
If they gain momentum, like they will, because even when they're a Ring Comp, it's the group you love to hate, because they are what wrestling is. They're old school, so they're what people would do if they're studying to be a wrestler. That's what Imperium are.
Yeah.
So they'll gain a lot of knowledgeable older wrestlers on the side of their faction. So for me, there's so much potential here, and I know we're going to touch on something later that we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Because of the main event. That will just be step one, and how that goes will depend on how the rest of it's going to go for me. So we'll talk more about it a bit later.
Yeah, looks like very impressed with the kind of debut here of Alexander Wolf on NXT UK. Long may it continue as far as I'm concerned. Then we're reminded that Toni Storm will be defending her NXT UK Women's Championship against Kaylee Ray next week on NXT UK, and of course we'll be covering it right here on the podcast. We will of course have to wait to see how that match ends, but I don't know whether you the same as me, Kieron, were a little bit disappointed that they haven't saved this match for TakeOver Cardiff. It's a perfect championship match for Toni Storm to defend her belt, against Kaylee Ray. It's kind of set up for a takeover, to be honest with you. It definitely seems to be the biggest match on the NXT UK women's division right now, wouldn't you say? Do you think that I think that maybe we might get a bit of a false finish next week, leading to possibly a rematch in Cardiff? What are your thoughts?
I agree with you. This match isn't going to end clean. It's not going to end with a title change. It's going to end in either a disqualification of one of them, if not both of them, or a double count out. I think with everything that's been going on with the build-up of this, it has to be a takeover match. So I think this will be our first kind of guaranteed takeover match for August 31st. Obviously, there'll be other stuff announced beforehand, but this one pretty much for me is a dead cert to happen there. Just plainly because of the build-up they've had. This has been building up for weeks now. And technically, Kaylee Ray's got a title shot whenever she wants. That was the stipulation of that Battle Royal.
Of course.
So if she hasn't picked that match and they've just gone, let you two have a match. Kaylee Ray, so you could play really with wordplay on this one. And Kaylee Ray could just be like, well, this isn't my opportunity I'm taking. They gave me this opportunity. I'm taking mine on the 31st of August.
Interesting. Yeah. But I think this is tailor-made for a takeover match, and I can't really think of a stronger, more established opponent to Toni Storm's championship than a Kaylee Ray. So they'd have to come up with a pretty good storyline and a decent contender if it's not Kaylee Ray at Cardiff, put it that way. But speaking of the NXT UK Women's Division, that moves us on to the next match. It was Jazzy Gabert, obviously accompanied as always by Ginny, down to the ring against two kind of enhancement wrestlers. I'll kind of hold my hands up now and say I didn't make a note of their names. I don't know if you did, Kieron. Did you know who was going up against Jazzy Gabert in this match?
I know one was Mercedes Blaze. I can't remember the other one.
No, it's Luna something.
Because I've seen her wrestle before.
Yeah, no, apologies for not making a note of their names. But to be honest with you, at the end of this match, they probably couldn't even remember their names anyway. It was a 2-on-1 handicap match. And although she's on her own, Jazzy's two opponents are the ones who are massively handicapped in this match. Jazzy could have been up against 4 or 5 kind of lower card talent on the NXT UK brand, and the odds still would have been stacked against them. Jazzy doesn't take too long to destroy her two opponents here, finishing the match with a front face slam for an easy 1-2-3. Thoughts on Jazzy, and how do you see her alliance with Ginny going at the moment? As well as, if you've been keeping tabs on NXT UK, the inclusion of Xia Brookside seems to be kind of included within this storyline as well. Kind of what's your thoughts on how it's going between Jazzy, Ginny, the sort of impact they're having, and the inclusion of Xia kind of on the fringes of this storyline as well, Kieron?
So I think it's going to be one of these things where you've got the powerhouse. So do you remember when Yui were dominating everyone and you put Roddy with Pete Dunne?
Yeah.
You turn on Pete.
Yeah.
Maybe they're going for a similar storyline with this, but with Xia. She's young. She needs the tutorage. Obviously, I know her dad's Robbie Brookside, UK legend. But just for longevity-wise, kind of like when Daniel Bryan got forced to join the Wyatt family.
Mm.
So you slide in and you get to the point where you want to get. So maybe you get a tag match with two others with one of them out, and then you attack from the inside.
Yeah.
Not really 100% sure on how they're going to do it with Zaya, if it's just going to be a feud or if it is going to be like that. It's interesting because they're keeping us guessing. It's not just come out, attacked her, and we know it's going to be a feud.
Yeah.
They've come out, sat on the stage, not actually done anything, and not actually given an explanation for it.
Yeah, it's been a nice bit of character development for all three of them, but especially Zaya Brookside being kind of intertwined with this storyline, and everybody's thinking that with Zaya being the babyface underdog, that she's going to get her comeuppance against the heel duo. But like you say, you've added a little twist there in your kind of fantasy booking there that she might potentially, fall in with the baddies in order to destroy them from within. So quite an interesting concept there, but something's happening, something's developing there with Zaya Brookside. I'm quite interested, but I've been very impressed with Jazzy Gabbert so far. I think that having Ginny as kind of like the evil mastermind behind the duo is fantastic. Like I say, I'm sure you are as well. I'm a massive fan of Ginny, the wrestler. But while they're trying to get Jazzy Gabbert over, I think she's playing a really good kind of managerial sidekick role at the moment, kind of almost the mastermind behind the group. But yeah. Then we saw a very good video package with Cassius Ohno calling himself the best British wrestler in the world, as he calls out Mark Andrews, almost certainly setting up a match between these two for the very near future. Then we're on to our main event. So former NXT Tag Team Champions Moustache Mountain versus the Grizzled Young Veterans, the current NXT UK Tag Team title. So just to run through some of the key spots from this excellent main event. So obviously this is a rematch from their match at NXT UK TakeOver Blackpool from January. Both teams look up and ready for this one as they get the big introductions, and this definitely has kind of the big match, big title match feel. During the introductions, Trent Seven takes the match to the Grizzled Young Veterans to start the match, connecting with a couple of wicked chops to the chest of Zach Gibson before getting a 2 count from a float over suplex. There's some excellent double team moves, as you would expect from Drake and Gibson, especially when the match goes to the outside. The Grizzled Young Veterans and Moustache Mountain can't be in a match. They can't really be matched on the NXT UK TakeOver. They can't be matched in the tag ranks on NXT UK at the moment, with a possible exception of the duo of Eichner and Bartel. I think that GYV and Moustache Mountain definitely the two best tag teams in NXT UK at the moment. Bates eventually gets the hot tag from Trent Seven, connecting with a delayed exploder suplex on Gibson and a running shooting star press, getting a 2 count. Bates is on fire as he delivers a wicked dive over the top rope onto both opponents on the outside. Gibson and Drake soon regain control with a series of double team moves, once again almost winning the match, getting a close near fall from one of their combo moves. Tyler Bate gets a close near fall of his own from an inside cradle. Bate then connects with a diving headbutt onto Drake before Seven drops Gibson with a burning hammer onto James Drake, with the Moustache Mountain very nearly taking the match and taking the titles from that exchange of moves. However, all 4 members of Imperium then come out to the ring. And they run out to the ring to end the match with a disqualification. Alexander Wolf and Bartel are laying waste to Trent Seven inside the ring, while Walter and Eichner punish Tyler Bates on the outside. Imperium then handcuff Trent Seven to the middle turnbuckle, while Walter powerbombs Tyler Bates onto the ring apron, not once but twice, before delivering a third powerbomb to Tyler Bates, this time against the steel ring post. So Imperium stand tall and dominant on the ring apron as the show goes off the air, as Trent Seven screams to his partner Tyler Bates, getting no reaction from his best friend after the punishment he just received from the current UK champion Walter. Tyler Bate and Trent look beaten at the hands of Walter and the rest of Imperium, just as they were looking like they were about to take the titles from GYV. Kieron, a hell of a main event, a really, really kind of dramatic end to the match. Then you had Imperium and the attack to finish the show. Trent Seven and Tyler Bate especially taking the beating of a lifetime on the outside to all 4 members of Imperium. I'd love for you to kind of sum up your thoughts on the match and the post-match attack from Imperium.
The match was good. Obviously, it wasn't Blackpool worthy, but I think the attack after the match took away from the actual match. Because you mentioned about the diving headbutt and the burning hammer combination.
Yeah.
If you look closely, Tyler actually jumps on. I think it was James Drake that Seven had on his shoulders. He jumps on James Drake's stomach and then hits the headbutt.
Yeah.
It's just, this is why I love Moustache Mountain. It's just little things like that. Adds a little bit more impact, puts more emphasis on the double team move. But I feel the attack at the end took away from the actual match. Don't get me wrong, the attack was brutal, and you know that's going to build to some huge storyline. Not 100% sure how they're going to go with it, because obviously you've got to have the UK title defended in Cardiff. Who that'll be against, I don't know. Maybe they give Walter a brand new challenger. I don't know, maybe throw Jordan Devlin in there. Let Jordan Devlin have a title match. And then have, obviously, Pete, Tyler and Trent versus the other 3 members of Imperium. I personally want to see 4v4. And I posted on the Facebook page on who I think the 4th member should be. It should be Dan Maloney, the unofficial 4th member of British Strong.
You're very passionate about him, aren't you?
I've watched him a few times, and I don't know if I've been on since the 80s show. Yeah, I was on the 80s show.
Yeah.
Because we reviewed it. After watching him there, I saw a different side of him, and it's just made me like him more. He's at Natural Progression series as well. He was Trent's pick, so I'm looking forward to watching him in that. But I think it's got to be one of those things where for this war to end with British Strong Style and Imperium, it's got to be a 4v4. And it's got to be some sort of huge match. So normally you'd have like War Games, but I don't think they're going to put War Games on NXT UK. They should have the match that no one ever mentions. WCW did it a few times. The Tower of Terror.
No! That was awful.
I don't ever watched a couple of them. I think the concept was good, but I think you should have it where it's like stages. Not you've got to escape one bit to get to another bit to get to another bit to then escape the cage.
Yeah.
I think that's long. I agree with the intervals. We're going off on a tangent. We can discuss this at a later time.
Carry on.
I'll be hours.
But you're right. They do need to have a blow-off match between the 4 members of Imperium, or maybe, depending on who Walter faces at Takeover Cardiff, possibly 3 members of Imperium versus British Strong Style. But if they do go 4-on-4, who might be the 4th member? Could it be Jordan Devlin? Could it be somebody else? And there needs to be kind of a big kind of gimmick match to kind of blow off their feud, because when you think it's kind of come to an end, it just takes on another level, and it just takes on another life of its own. And I think that this week's the attack after the main event was particularly brutal, and that's got to lead to something. That's got to lead to a big story. I mean, we've obviously got plans ahead, and no doubt Pete Dunne is going to get involved in them plans. So I, like you, am very, very intrigued as to what's happening. And as you alluded to earlier, it's really, really refreshing to see these storylines kind of creeping up and kind of developing and maturing, and they're not being kind of blown off in 1 week and somebody, a Vince McMahon behind the scenes, is getting bored with it the next. They're taking weeks, sometimes months to develop and to mature and to come to fruition, because that is the best type of storytelling. That is 50% of what I love about wrestling. I love the action, but I love the characters and the storyline. So, to get that, especially with a brand that I love, such as NXT or NXT UK, makes it all the better as far as I'm concerned. But, I thought it was like I say, we didn't have a decisive conclusion to the match, but I think we did get an additional layer to this storyline, and it kind of makes us want to tune in for next week. And that's what all good wrestling shows is meant to do. So once again, another great episode of NXT UK. This, along with NXT, is consistently the best wrestling shows on under the WWE umbrella at the moment. I'm sure you'd agree with me there, Kieron. But today we spoke about an excellent match pitting Piper Niven versus Rhea Ripley. A couple of impressive wins for Alexander Wolf and Jazzy Gabbert, and that awesome main event and the brutal attack on Tyler Bate and Trent Seven from Imperium to close. So if you go out and watch one wrestling show this week, then make it NXT UK, because this hour of NXT UK was definitely worth watching. And if you haven't started watching NXT UK, then what the hell have you been doing for the last year or so, because you've been missing out on some excellent quality action on a weekly basis. So Kieron, that draws us to an end of this week's podcast and this week's episode of NXT UK and NXT. So thank you so much once again for jumping on the podcast and helping us out this week.
Not a problem. I look forward to doing it again. Just a little message to anyone who is about at any of the Progress shows this weekend. If you're in Manchester, don't be afraid to come say hi. Obviously, you know where to find me. I'm on the Facebook page. You can find me on Twitter, just at Kieron Reed. If you've got any questions, just pop me a message.
There we go. Well, it looks like if you're in Manchester watching the Progress show on Sunday, give Kieron a shout and go over and say hi. But thank you so much for Kieron. We definitely look forward to getting you on the podcast again in the very near future. So there we go. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. And if you did, please don't forget to hit like, subscribe and share and shout about this podcast. Tell your friends and tell your family, and keep listening to the Wrestling with Johners podcast for all of your weekly NXT UK, NXT, WWE and all-round wrestling goodness. Without you sharing and subscribing this podcast, we can't continue to grow and improve. So hit share, like, subscribe, do it now, people. Please don't forget to hit us up on Twitter @withjohners_pod. You can find us on Instagram as well at Wrestling with Johners, and of course the Facebook group. Just go out and search Wrestling with Johners. We'll be back again next week with more NXT and NXT UK action and a full recap of the shows, including Toni Storm defending her NXT UK Women's Championship against Kaylee Ray. We spoke about that a short while ago. We'll also be giving you our thoughts on the Evolve 10th anniversary show, Fight for the Fallen, and of course our Extreme Rules predictions. So with all of that to look forward to, thank you very much for listening, and in the meantime, have yourself a good weekend and speak to you all again soon.